This Torah class is brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.
Okay, good morning, Rabbi Sai. We continue in the Navi Hoshea, Parak Yud, Pasuk Beis. Parak Yud, Pasuk Beis. Chalak libam. Their hearts are divided. Ata yashamu. Now they will be guilty. Hu ya'aroif mizbechaisam. He will cut down and destroy their altars. Yeshoided, it will plunder matzevoisam, their pillars. It will plunder their pillars. Now this pasuk, Chalak libam ato yeshamu, is a very important pasuk. There is a pasuk that says like this: Chaver atzabim Ephraim hanachlai. Chaver atzabim Ephraim. Ephraim is a group of idolaters. Hanachlai, leave them alone. What does that mean? Chaver atzabim Ephraim hanachlai. That means as follows. That means so long as Klal Yisrael are united, even if it's united in idolatry, the Rivan Shalom overlooks. The Rivan Shalom forgives. That the power of unity is such that Hashem will overlook even the largest infractions if we are united as one. Even Keneged Hashem. In fact, Rashi even points out that who did a bigger Avera? The Dar HaMabel or the Dar HaFlaga? The Dar HaMabel, what do? They stole. The Dar HaFlaga, they were fighting God. And yet the Dar HaFlaga, they got off easy. Hashem just dispersed them. And the Dar HaMabel, Hashem destroyed them. Does that make any sense? Here the Dar HaMabel, they stole. They didn't do such a... I mean, it's a bad thing, but it's not like a... Yeah, they were corrupt morally, but they were utterly decimated. And the Dar HaFlaga, they went to fight God.
Make a promise after the Dar HaMabel,
Yeah,
wasn't going to
with water. There's nuclear warfare. There's all kinds of stuff. So what does Rashi say? Rashi says, by the Dar HaFlaga, it says, Vayhi kala'am safa achas udvar machadim. They were united. The unity is something which is very favorable in the eyes of God, and He'll even overlook terrible things. But the Dar HaMabel, they were contentious. There was chamas. They robbed from each other, and therefore they suffered a much greater fate. The Meshech Chochmah says that truthfully, there are two ways that God judges. He judges the individual and He judges the community. On a communal level, the breakdown of society is considered the most severe. Meaning, if there's a lack of unity, that is the greatest deficiency in society as a whole. As an individual, though, the Bein Adam LaMakai might be more severe than Bein Adam LaChaver. But be it as it may, this is the concept of Chaver Atzabim Ephraim Hanachlai. Ephraim is a group of idolaters, and therefore Hashem says, I forgive them. It's interesting. There's a Gemara Masechta Megillah. The Gemara says, Shalu Talmidav Es Rav Shimon Bar Yochai. The students asked Rav Shimon Bar Yochai, Mipnei ma neschayvu saneim shel Yisrael ba'is adar klaya. Why did the Jews in that generation deserve to be destroyed? Referring to the times of Haman. And Hashem and Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said, like a good Rabbi, you tell me, what do you think? So they said, because they were nene from the Sud of Achashverosh. So Rav Shimon Bar Yochai says, that can't be, because then only the Jews of Shushan should be punished, not the Jews all over the world. So the Talmidim said, so new Rebbe, why don't you tell us? So Rav Shimon Bar Yochai said, because they bowed down to the Tselem in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. Yeah? So it's interesting. I once saw a beautiful...
everybody did that? Or
Everyone did that.
locals?
Everyone did that. All the Jews were in Bavel all the time. We know, when it comes to the mitzvah of Shalach Manos, there are two reasons for Shalach Manos. One reason is the reason of the Manos HaLevi, Reb Shlomo Al-Kabetz. Reb Shlomo Al-Kabetz says that the reason for the mitzvah of Mishlach Manos is Haman tried to say, Yeshnai Am Echad Mefuzar Mefarad Bein Ha'amim, that they're a disparate nation, they're fragmented, they can't get along. So the purpose of Shalach Manos is to show unity, Nikalu HaYehudim Ba'yavehem, to show the achdus of Klal Yisrael. Okay. Another reason for Shalach Manos is the reason of the Trumas Hadeshin, and that is there's a mitzvah of Sudas Purim. Why do we have Sudas Purim? We have Sudas Purim because since we were nene from the Sud of Achashverosh, in order to counteract that, To Misana we have a Suda, and to provide for the Suda we have Shalach Manas. So these are the two reasons for Shalach Manas, either for the provide for the Suda or to show Achdos. But really these two reasons, Rabbi Menachem Zemba, Zechat Baruch said, trace back to the two Averos that Klal Yisrael did to warrant the punishment of Haman. If the reason for the Gezerah was because we were Neneh from the Suda of Achashverosh, so to correspond to that, we have our Sudas Purim, and we provide for that through Shalach Manas. Meaning the reasoning that the Talmidim offer, that we're Neneh from the Suda, to counteract that, we have one reason of Shalach Manas. But the reason of, to show Achdus, that corresponds to the fact that we bow down to the Avodah Zarah. They were nishtachvet to the Tzelem in the time of Nebuchadnezzar. How does Achdus counteract that? Exactly what we're saying. Chabar atzabim Ephraim hanachlai. When Klal Yisrael are unified, Hashem is willing to forgo even Avodah Zarah. So to counteract the chet of Avodah Zarah in the times of Nebuchadnezzar, they were masakin Shalach Manas to display Achdus. That's why right after the chet ha'egel, Chet Egel is a sin of Avodah Zarah. What do we have immediately after Kisisa? Vayakel Moshe. Moshe gathered the people. Why is he gathering the people? Also, a tikkun for Avodah Zarah. Achdus is a tikkun for Avodah Zarah. You could explain possibly on a philosophical level. How is Achdus a tikkun for Avodah Zarah? There is a concept that Yisrael, V'iraisa, V'kutchabrichu, Chadhu. The Jewish people, God, and the Torah are one. Now, listen carefully. Okay, it's very deep. We once said something similar to this. The Jewish people and the Torah and God are one. Chazal say, Ki yad al keska. God swears by his throne that so long as Amalek is in the world, his name is not complete. Right? In fact, we once pointed out, Keska, Kaf Samach Yud Hey, is Gematria 95, Gematria Haman. Haman makes it Keska, that God's name is not complete. Where in the Megillah do we find that Haman was trying to make God's name not complete? Have you ever read any Midrashim that Haman took Yud-Kei Vav-Kei and was sawing it in half? Take the Yud-Kei, take the Vav-Kei and put it in the other. Where do we find that Haman was tampering or making God's name incomplete? All we find that Haman said is Yeshnai Am Echad, Mefuzar Mefayed Ba'amim, that the Jewish people are fragmented, that there's no Achdus. But Haman never tampered with the name of Hashem. No, the Jewish people reflect God. We and God are one. If we are fragmented, it's like the name of God is fragmented. If we are not Ba'achdus, it's like there's no Achdus in Hashem. So Haman didn't actually tamper with the name of Hashem. Haman merely pointed out that we are fragmented. By pointing that out, Mamela, the name of God is fragmented. So Haman, in fact, is Keska. He's tampering with the name of Hashem. Haman says, Yeshnai Am Echad Mefuzar Mefayed. Once the Jewish people are Mefuzar Mefayed, the name of God is Mefuzar Mefayed. Therefore, that's Avodah Zarah. Avodah Zarah is not only when God's name, when there are two gods, or when there's no Achdus in Hashem. A lack of unity in Klal Yisrael is Avodah Zarah. You're splitting up the name of Hashem. You're destroying Achdus Habayre. The tikkun for that is Achdus. The way to be mashlim the Shem Hashem, the way to unify the name of God is Nikalu HaYehudim Eoyevayim, is unifying the Jewish people. It's interesting. What's the declaration of unity of God? What is the Shema Yisrael Hashem Elokeinu Hashem Echad? Interesting. Literally, Shema Yisrael means listen, Yisrael. It's who said Shema Yisrael? The Shvatim. Why did the Shvatim say Shema Yisrael? Because Yaakov Avinu on his deathbed, he's losing the Shechina. So the brothers say, don't worry, they gather everyone together. Shema Yisrael, listen Yaakov, we're all here as one. And if we're all here as one, then Hashem Echad, then Hashem is one. Because the unity of the Jewish people and the unity of God go hand in hand. It's one concept. Interestingly, if you look in the Magen Avraham points out that the Sheish Zechiros are actually fulfilled when we say Ahava Rabba or Rabba Solam. At the end of Avos Olam, we say, V'ker avtanu malkeinu shumcha hagadol sala be'emes. We say, V'havinu shami abba kanfo sar zon kikel v'shos adam uvanu v'charta. Uvanu v'charta is Maimed Har Sinai. V'ker avtanu l'shimcha is Kabbalas HaTorah. Hagadol, God's name was great, but Amalek wants to make God's name not great. So when we say the word Gadol, we remember Amalek. L'hoidoi slacha. We have to thank Hashem and not speak Lashon Hara like Miriam. U'liyachedcha bi'ahava. And we need to unify your name in love. You love us now, but there was a time that you didn't love us. When did God not love us? By the Chet HaEgal. What is the first thing that we say after alluding to the Chet HaEgal? Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. Right after the Chet HaEgal, by the Chet HaEgal, we said, Eila Elohecha Yisrael, that Yisrael believes in many gods. So we say every morning, Bi'ahava, you love us now, as opposed to the Egal. But let's rectify that right now. Shema Yisrael, Hashem Elokeinu, Hashem Echad. So that's the concept of Chaver Atzabim Ephraim Hanachloi. If Ephraim is one group, even if idolaters, God will forgive them. But comes the Navi Hoshea, Chalak Libam. When their hearts are divided, Ato Yesham. Then they're going down. So that's what it's dependent on. Chalak Libam, Ato Yeshamu. Hu Ya'aroi from his B'chaisam. He will destroy their altars. Yeshoyded Matzevoisam, plunder their pillars. Says Mitzudas David, Chalak Libam. Nechalak Libam. When they're divided, V'nifrad min ha'makam baruch hu, and they're separate from God. L'chein ata bizman karov. Therefore now, very soon, Yiu shmama, there will be devastation. Hu ya'arov. Vatzalaymer ha'makam baruch hu, God, Yaspik biyad ha'oyev, will supply in the hands of the enemy, lahashchis mizbechaisam, to destroy their altars, v'la'ashak matzevoisam, and oppress their pillars. Interesting on this idea that God and the Jewish people and the Torah are one. We find that when the Torah was given in Parshas Yisro, juxtaposed to the giving of the Torah is Yisro joining the Jewish people. So there are two things happening. The Torah is increasing and the Jewish people are increasing. The law is increasing, and the Jews are. We're getting new Gerim, Yisro.
Yisro is Mekayah, isn't it Machlokas whether you use that Mekayah or not?
So if you say Yisro, Kaida Matan Torah Ba, or even if directly after, but it's happening in the same time period. So Rav Hutner points out, because Yisrael, Vayraisa, V'kutsha B'richu Chadhu, Klal Yisrael, the Torah, and the Rebbeinu Shem are one. Meaning, when the Torah increases, the Jews increase. We could say the same thing by Purim. What happened by Purim? Also, they were Makabel the Torah b'Ava. Oh, they're Makabel the Torah b'Ava. What does the Megillah say? V'Rabbi me'amei ha'aretz n'siyadim. They were new Gerim. It's not a coincidence. Whenever Torah is accepted, they're always new Gerim. It goes hand in hand. Now, in both instances, by Yisro, it was after the defeat of Amalek in the times of Purim. So God's name is increasing, the Torah is increasing, and the Jewish people are increasing. They all go hand in hand. Okay, Pasuk Gimel. Ki ata yomru, for now they say, Ein melech lanu. We have no king. Ki lo yareinu es Hashem. Because since we did not fear God, v'hamelech ma ya'asa lanu. What can the king do for us? Says the Mitzudas David, Ki ata, bizman sheyavai ha'oyev, when the enemy comes, yomru, they will say, Hine ein hamelech ma ya'lanu. The Jewish people will say the king cannot help us. Lil chaim mol ha'oyev, to fight opposite the enemy. Ki ho'el v'lo yaranu es Hashem, since we did not fear God. Im kain, ma yuchal hamelech l'hoshea lanu, how can the king help us? Im ein lanu yiras elokim, if we don't have fear of God. Ki yiras Hashem, v'yiras hamelech k'shura yachad. Meaning, when the enemy comes, the Jewish people will say, now the king, our king, cannot help us to fight the enemy. Because if we did not fear Hashem, how could our king save us?
that mean?
Why?
You only have Asus when there's a melech?
I don't know that if it's connected to that. What the Mitzvah David's point is, fear of God and fear of the king are connected. What does that mean? Look at Rashi. Ki ata b'boy aleim hara, when the evil comes, the Yom will say, Ein lanu melech. We don't have a king. Malkeinu asher batachnu by, the king that we trusted in. Leimar, to say, sheyetze b'rishayna v'yilachem es mechavasenu, ein moyo lanu klum, cannot help us at all. They only have confidence in their king if they have fear of God. Let's go back and see the Rashi on Pasuk Beis. Chalak liba mimeni. If their heart is divided from me, ata yashama, now they will be guilty. Hu hadavar asher yarif mizbechaisam. This is the matter that will destroy their altars. Yashchisu, yashchis, a lashon of devastation. Lashon va'arfusham, the same language of egla arufa, va'arafta, yishbar tzavram, davar acher. Lefi medrash agada. This is a medrash that we quoted. Gadol hashalayim. Peace is great. Shafilu Yisrael avdu akam. Even if the Jews worship idols, v'shalom beineim, and there's peace among them, ein hasatan mekachek beineim. The Satan will never instigate. Shenemar chavor atzavim Ephraim hanachloi. V'sono yamachloikes. Shenemar chalak liba mata yeshamu yesh pischain peh l'satan lekatre. Okay. But now, ki ata b'bay aleim hara, that Rashi we saw. Dibru dvarim, they spoke words. Alois shav, swearing falsely. Karois bris, they executed a covenant. Uparach karoish mishpat, and judgment will sprout like karoish. What does the word mean, karoish? It's a type of weed. It's a bitter weed, hemlock. Al talmes. What? Yeah, it says over here, it's a bitter, terrible weed, like roish v'la'ana. Al talme sadai, on the furrows of the field. Says the Mitzudas David, Dibru dvarim, hema medabrim dvarim ha'ila alavavam. They speak words that just enter their heart, mivli havchana, without testing it, without understanding what the point of their words are, without being careful in what they say. V'nishbam lashav, they swear falsely, v'karsim bris la'akom, and they seal covenant with goyim. Uparach, therefore it will sprout upon them. Mitzudas David says, mishpat gemol, a judgment of recompense. K'may esav haroish hamar, like this bitter herb, haparech mehar maher, that sprouts quickly, al talme sada. Okay. Pasuk le'eglois beis oven, because of the calves of beis oven. Let's see Rashi first on Pasuk Dal. Rashi says, Aloi shav, swearing falsely. Hashbei ala sheker, swearing for sheker. Alois, the word alois, kamai karos, lashon hoiveh, present tense. Alois, like karos, lashon hoiveh. Karos bris la'akam shel moilach. They seal covenant with the idolaters of moilach. Lefikach yifrach aleim mishpat yisram. Therefore it will sprout upon them the judgment of afflictions, uparanos, karoish, like this bitter weed, shu esav mar, haparech al talme sadai. Says Rashi, v'yonasan tergem, Yonasan translates it, al talme sadai, va'avoin shemasigin gevulei sadais. Because of the sin that they are masig the boundaries of fields, talme sadai, Ma'anis hamacharesha, the furrows of plowed fields, karoi telam. Davar acher, al talmei sadai, shehim oisim sham mizbachaisim. That's where they make their altars. Kamay shenemar, Gam mizbechoisam, even their altars, kegalim al talmei sadai, are like waves on the furrows. Davar acher aloi shav, Kabris shehim karsim zem zeh. Every covenant that they seal with each other, oivrim, olav, they violate. Uparach keroish mishpad al tamei sadai. Keroish, which flourishes on the furrows of the fields, which is a very bitter herb, so too their judgments sprout and grow in their place for poverty and avyonim. Okay. One more passage. Le'eglois beis oven. Because of the calves of beis oven, Yaguru shechan shomron. The residents of Shomron should be afraid.
Here he says beis oven is beis el. It's a derogatory reference to beis el.
Mm-hmm.
They had their idols, their Avodah Zarah there, and they were taken away. It was like an embarrassment. See that your idols can't even protect you.
Right. In Sefer Yeshua, Beis El is referred to as Beis Oven because of their idolatry. Ki aval olav amoy. His nation shall mourn over it. Uchemarav, and its priests, olav yagilu, will exult over it. Again, uchemarav, and its priests, olav yagilu, who in the past rejoice over it, al kvoidai, will now mourn for its honor, ki gala mimenu, that has been exiled from it. So you read the pasuk like this: Le'eglois beis oven, because of the calves of Beis El, yaguru shechan shomron, those who dwell in the Shomron will be fearful. Ki aval olav amoy, its nation will mourn for it. Uchemarav, as well as its priests, olav yagilu, who in the past rejoiced, al kvoidai, for his honor, for its honor, ki gala mimenu, that has been exiled from it. Says the Mitzudais David, La'agalois, ba'avur agalois beis oven, because of the calves of beis oven, shenilkachu b'shvi, that were taken into captivity. Yifchadu hashachnu b'shamram ba'amram, im lo higinu al atzman, eich yaginu aleinu. These calves, the calves that were worshipped as idols, they themselves were taken into captivity. And when the gods are taken into captivity, the people say, if the gods can't protect themselves, how are they going to protect us? Ki avel, what? It's a kavach. Very good. Ki avel alav al ha'egel yisablu. They're going to mourn over the egel. Amay shehaminu, the people that believed in it will mourn. V'gam ha'koimim shosmeichem alav, and the priests who used to rejoice over it. Hinei ati yisabolu al kvoidai ki galu mimenu, when it's taken into the captivity. It says Rashi, La'agos beis oven leparanos hasidu lavai al agam beis oven, for the punishment that is destined to come on the calves in Beis El, which is called Beis Oven in Sefer Yeshua Yaguru, the neighbors will be afraid in the Shomron. Why? Ki avel olav amoy chamar v'ashar olav yagilu tamid. The priests that would constantly rejoice, ata yavalu al kvoidei, will now mourn for its honor, kigala, that it was exiled. Okay, Rabbi say, we will hold it over here. Shkayach.
You've just experienced another Torah class brought to you by TorahAnytime.com.